Welcome back, everybody, to the Primas podcast. I am Cindy. You may not recognize me because,
New hair.
New hair, who this? So yeah, but what's up, you guys? I just, call me Mirta. From now on, I'm going to change my tia Letty gave me that name. I said Martha. She's like, no, dude, Mirta. And I was like, yep. So I'm changing my name legally to Mirta Barajas.
You can rock that. I like it.
And that's my beautiful Prima Jess.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm still in Disney mode. Nothing's changed. I just went to Disneyland yesterday and I love it there.
You haven't washed your hands yet?
Mm-mm.
That's nice.
Or showered. Just kidding. I did. Yeah.
Can you not do that, Jess? Just kidding. I didn't hear it. So we have a really good one today. We are going to talk about, I want to say the psychology of Squid Games and how we can see it. What was that show about? Huge fan, by the way. I saw up until season 5. No,
Episode 5.
Because I wanted to talk about it. We had a really hard time. We wanted to bring someone on to also give us their take. And it was really hard to get anyone. And so I was like, let's just do it, Jess. And then I had some free time yesterday and I did it.
You binge watched.
I binged. It was awesome. Well, I was doing a lot of research on it. And I'm like, come on. I didn't have a connection to the character. I know so much about the characters, but I didn't see them in action. So I'm like, you have to watch it. So yeah.
And this is huge, guys, because Cindy doesn't ever watch TV or any shows. So yay, Prima, welcome to the Netflix world. Where it takes over your life.
Yeah. Well, no, I think sometimes I always tell people, if you have something that's worthwhile, please recommend it to me. And because my mom has Netflix. So I'm like, cool. Mom. And then I get her excited about it. A little manipulation. And she's like, all right, I guess I can watch it with you. And then you can borrow my TV. And then we watch it. But yeah, so the social dilemma. Remember I watched that.
Oh,
one.
yes. But you're right. This isn't very often. Social dilemma, I think, was season 2. We discussed that.
Yeah, but now also the Black Mirror is on my radar. So I'm like, dude, that's a cool ass. Just hearing about it, I haven't even seen it. I'm like, I want to watch that. So yeah,
that's cool. Remind me, you said you saw episode 5. What game was the last one you saw?
The last one was the was it
Marbles?
The sugar one?
No, marbles.
It wasn't marbles.
Did you see the marble game though?
No.
Okay, then it was probably tug of war because marble was game 4, and that one was the one that made me cry the most.
I do want to finish it. I'm going to finish it right after this because I'm like, I have to. But I really appreciate the South Korean cultural influence. It's not just, I think it's an Asian influence that's kind of becoming more prominent. Because I think Japanese culture is huge now. Chinese, Vietnam, you know what I mean? There's just little things that now I'm like, oh wow, I know that that's South Korean, or I know that that's Thai, or you know what I mean? Japanese inspired. And so with food, fashion. And so my mom has been a fan of South Korean
culture
for a long time. So, but it was just her. And she's always been into weirder, she's like, oh, I'm into this really good South Korean novela. And I'm like, what? She's like, they're good. They're more authentic. They're more this and just whatever.
Question. When you guys were watching Squid Games, did you guys watch it in the original language with subtitles, or did you change the language?
Yeah. So I put it in English for me, and then the subtitles are Spanish.
Okay. And when your mom watches things like that, does she typically do it like that?
Yeah, she'll watch it she'll hear it in their original, but then she'll do subtitles in Spanish because she likes to study. She says she knows some vocabulary now. She recognized some of the actors from Squid Game. And I'm like, oh my God, Mom, why wouldn't you want to watch this? She's like, it got too big. And she's like, I don't like the hype. I don't know. And
you're gonna have your mom on. Yeah. One day with Robert, I think would be cool. You 3.
Yeah, but it would be in Spanish. So you'd need some translation in the bottom.
Oh yeah. I'd wear those headphones.
Yeah. We'll have a simultaneous interpreter. I used to do that.
There you go.
Yeah. So anyway.
But, yeah, okay, that's cool because I didn't know when I started watching Squid Games. It was like, I think maybe the first show on Netflix with that option. So people kept saying this word and I'm like, what the hell is that word? And they were all laughing because when we like the first 3 episodes, I saw in the original language and I had the subtitles in English. So I really had to pay attention, and I heard like the original voices and everything and I liked it. And then there was like a term they use, but then you can change them to speaking English and then also English, like English subtitles as well, in case you miss something, because it kind of sounds a little funny to me. And I didn't like it because I had got used to it, them speaking in Korean, and then me just reading the subtitles. And when I switched it, I was like, no. So I watched 1 episode like that and I continued in the original. I don't know, just something about the original.
Yeah, of course. I would have done, I think it's the preference, but since me and my mom were watching it, I did say, Mom, I can read in Spanish. She's like, no, it's going to be too fast for you. And I was like, rude. But it's true. I can read Spanish, but it's too quick and you're like, it's too much. So and I also, in all of these like conspiracy theory videos that I watched to prep, they were saying that like a lot of stuff wasn't even translated. So I see that in English and Spanish. And I'm like, that's not what they said, or they could have said that better. They could have explained that better. So there's that. There's little pieces that I know that I'm like, they're probably not, they're Americanizing this down, like what they really implicate by that or whatever. But so yeah.
I've heard that too, and we would never know, right? At least in Spanish, you can make that like translation. We would never be able to with that.
But just keep that in mind, when you do watch like foreign or Spanish or whatever your language is and you're switching it, you're not getting 100% translation. It's not impossible, but that'd be a lot. I don't think Netflix gets down like that. Maybe eventually. Anyways,
so are we cool to discuss spoiler alerts, or should we save that?
No, I think we should the good thing you said that. Spoiler alert big time. So if you haven't seen this and you don't mind, because we're gonna do we have to, like, how else can we relate it back? It's gonna happen. Hopefully you've seen it though, and if you haven't, stop now. Pause the video.
Yeah, no, it a lot of people were watching it. I want to say in about October.
Yeah, so it's kind of older, so that's good. And like I said, we've been meaning to talk about this from the beginning. It was just hard to make it work to bring someone in and me not watching it, because I'm like, well, I'm not gonna watch it, so I'll just ask the questions. But we've watched it a little bit, and you finished the series. So cool.
And it's a good twist at the end. I did not see that coming, for sure.
Yeah, me neither. So even though I didn't finish, I watched a lot of spoiler, like,
okay. So you know how it ends.
I know I know like the main little points. Yeah.
Okay, let's dive into it. So should we give a little background of what the game was?
Yeah.
All right then. So I like how they kind of like pick certain people, right? And in the first episode, we kind of don't see like why they're getting chosen until after they get picked, right? Until they start talking amongst themselves. But the main character, we see him get like, he gets followed by this guy and he entices him with that game, right? And he's like, oh, he tells him to choose the 2 cards, the red or the blue card, right? And then we kind of see a glimpse in the beginning where he's like a horse race gambler, so we see like, okay, well, he's into gambling. And yeah, he was instilling intrigued by it, and he kept losing. And then it's like that all or nothing mentality, right? It's like, no, even though you lost and you have nothing else to give, he still kept playing. And I was like, oh no, that's already when I saw it wasn't going to end good for him. And then he did lose it all. And he's like, oh, well, you can come back and try to win these other games. Or how do you feel about that? And that's how he hooked him, right?
Yeah. And it's very telling of the psychology behind gambling. and it's hard to watch when you're not because it's like there's no way you're ever going to get out of this. It seems that way, right? It's just like you're digging yourself deeper and deeper and deeper, and you win money, but you're so compulsive. So it's called a behavioral addiction. So it's different, and I think gambling for a long time wasn't talked about as a serious thing because it wasn't substance related. But you can literally have an addiction and a very unhealthy attachment or bond to anything: food, a person, sex, gambling, prostitution, or substances. Like there's just so much. So I think that's cool that they portrayed his issue as a behavioral addiction, which gambling is also, it comes from childhood trauma. And people are very impulsive and they have difficulty restraining. So it's almost like an automatic, like when we talk about anxiety, right? That's kind of like low level, like, okay, I just made a dumb decision, or I just said something dumb, and we catch ourselves. For them, it's a bigger, riskier, it's that same little impulse where it's just like, dude, like, like get it together because we're stressing out. But I think the other thing that the directors did was made sure that they portrayed gambling in a very realistic form. Like this guy was a good person. We see that throughout like the show, but he has a gambling problem. So that's why it is an issue, because you see that he has great traits and, he's trying his best. I mean, you really empathize, right? It's like stresses you out, but it's like he has a problem, and that's kind of how I see, or I don't know how psychology explains addiction, right? Like people with addictions are not bad people. Yes, the addiction leads to a lot of bad things, like not being able to form relationships with others, him risking like his mom's stuff. Obviously, they don't have a good relationship. And so it's a spiraling down, right? Of things that come, but foundationally, the person's a good person. So it's kind of like, it's hard to watch.
And when I see the addiction aspects, it's like I always question, is it a personality trait, or more people who have this personality type more receptive to addiction than others, because I always think like, right, we ask ourselves, if we were given that opportunity, would we like continue playing, and automatically no, but gambling isn't my thing. We've talked about it last week when we were in Black Friday. Like we don't have the means to just keep giving away, but I see, like you explained, the greater risk. It's like, okay, well, here's my $20, but if I give it all and I do win, I'll make 5 times that, and then I'll have $100, but it's like, I don't see myself as like a person who has an addiction personality, but I've seen people who, have that characteristic. And I wonder, is it just the addiction aspect, or does it like roll over to their personality, Like, where does it balance out?
Yeah, but I think your environment shapes you throughout your development. That's why it's so complex, because you're saying you don't have an addicting personality, but I think we all do. We assume that, something like gambling or substance use, that's like really intense, but you can have an addiction to coffee. You can have a psychological addiction to weed.
I do have an addiction to coffee, and we were just talking about.
Exactly. So I think there's too many nuances for you to, for me at least, I'm not like a professional at this, but like, that's where it's intriguing how very uniquely some of these traumas will manifest themselves, and then you just learn more and more, and you're like, I mean, it's infinite how it's gonna, so I don't know, I can't pinpoint. I would say, something traumatic happened, or ongoing trauma, like there's that part where it's like PTSD, where something happens, but then complex PTSD is explained as trauma that's repeated over, like that's going to do something very different to someone's neurological capacity, and that means memory, mood, behavior. So that's why it starts going into those areas where now we can't form a healthy relationship with someone because we have way too many layers of trauma. And a lot of people, they get stuck in their lives. Like a lot of these people in the show, they're so deep in it that it makes sense to the viewer that they're making that choice. Like, well, yeah, look at how messed up. But then it's like, where am I mentally? Would I make, like, no, I wouldn't have played to begin with. At least I have that where it's like, no, this seems shady, so I'm cutting it. I'm not doing it. Where those people are like, oh, there's a like, it's impulsive. And it's, so to me, it's like something happened in their brain development where they literally didn't develop that. Wait a minute, let me step back and think. Where I'd be like, nah, dude. As soon as I sense something is off, I don't even know what it is, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna listen to that before I get into some trouble. And some people lack that. And so they put themselves in where other people are like, what are you doing? So yeah, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, that is a good one. Thank you for pointing that out. I do have an addiction. That's all I got from that.
Welcome.
But look how quick we are. Yes, I love this. That how quick we are to be like, no, no, no. And then no, we do, because it's so hard that like, this is what we're working on. This is what we talk about all the time.
Because if you think about it, and I don't know, we always say this, don't listen to us, do your own research. From what I've gathered, an addiction is an attachment issue. We just attach to something. A trauma bond is almost the same thing. Something was lacking in our safety when we were younger, so it manifested differently, and so we attach to certain things that bring us comfort. And so it's not bad that people have addictions. It's telling of, this is what they attach to. I'm not saying your trauma is attaching to coffee, but you know what I mean? Because it isn't. But it's still something where it's like, it brings comfort to you still. So that can be translated into self-medication for someone who does other stuff, right? That's what we say, or I'm self-medicating. And it's like, no, you're putting a Band-Aid on that wound, and who knows how far and whatever that wound goes. But if we weren't able to form healthy attachments with the world when we were young, which a lot of us didn't, most of us didn't, right? Most people didn't. Then we tend to have unhealthy attachments later to other things, people, you know, I've never been able to, in the past, right? I've been single for a while, but like I've been honest about, I never had a healthy attachment with any relationship romantically that I've had, because I wasn't ready. I hadn't dealt with my stuff. But that was an honest, like, yeah, I can see in my life how that happened. So.
Interesting. Good point, Prima. All right. So yeah, that's the intro to Squid Games. And right away they get into it, right? I think episode 1, does it show red light, green light, or no? I don't remember. Okay, then maybe it's the beginning of episode 2 is where they show the first game, right? And how gruesome it was. I did not expect it to be that graphic. I think that's what turned a lot of people away, including myself, because after the first episode, I was intrigued, but not really. It wasn't until after the first game I saw, and I was like, oh, imagine you committed to like playing this game and now knowing the outcome, you know, there's only one winner. So that like changes the game and the perspective of a lot of other people, you know, because they've been in their own vices themselves, whether they hurt people or not. Now it's like, you know, you have to, because it's either me or you. And if it's not me, then that means I won't be here. And that's another harsh, like, acceptance. How do you feel about after the first game?
Well, it's not even the first game. I think, yeah, that's impactful. But the thing is, there's a 93% whatever, they came back, meaning that it doesn't really matter. I think at the beginning where there's blood splatting on you and you're seeing all this killing, you're like, oh shit, that's not what I'm not used to it. So it's going to cause a lot of craziness.
Oh, that's true. And then that's crazy how the old man was the one who like determined that, right? Because he was the last person to sway the votes either.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I was like, that's so interesting. Like, right, we see the end of it. We know who he is at the end. And it's like, he could have easily said yes, knowing that he plotted all this, but he gave them that chance, that opportunity, and he knew they were going to come back. And you said the percentage was 93.
And then the people that didn't come back, they're like, what? Whoa. Because they were almost expecting, like, why wouldn't your life, they kept saying this, the theme is worse out there. Here, at least we're giving you a chance. Out there, there's no chance, you're stuck, right? And it's also the personality types they choose. You and I, as much as we're going to stress and maybe like hit rock bottom, it doesn't look the same as someone who's in extreme poverty for a really long period of time, which is kind of showing in this area where it's like these people are their debt is they're never gonna come out of their debt unless they win this game. So the personality types were chosen correctly. I heard somewhere that it was called psychology of poverty. So they chose people that had, been in the immigration people, the girl that came from North Korea, and then the guy that came from Pakistan. So again, the people that they're talking to is like people that we would see now that are doing street business. They're in the street business, whatever, whether it's drug, whether it's smuggling, whether it's, you know what I mean? Like those people they're gonna psychologically, they tend to be more risky. And the old guy, he's the host of the game or whatever. He's a sociopath, because when he is going like red or green, he thinks in his head this whole time that he's giving them an equal chance. Like that's a theme again that keeps being thrown out to you, but it's like, it's not really equal. But correct. He's justifying it. He's like, no, I'm not a bad person. I'm giving them, they're choosing to do. So his rationality is fair. So I get that, right? I get what he's saying, but really that's not what's happening, because you're preying on specific personality types. They do a lot of detailed background checks on all of these people. So it's just like, who you're going after. You're not going after someone who's going to say no to you, or chances are, right? So I saw a conspiracy theory video where they say that he chose the red button because he's like, no, if this is what it is, then I don't want to force them to do it. And then, but the powers that be, is like, there's power and money behind this, or so it seems like it. So they know that they're going to come back. So yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. Like when I watched it, I was like, no way that many people came back. I think out of like, for example, 1,500, only 6 didn't return, right? And that's a huge, huge percentage of them to come back. And I always say like, no, I'd be those 6%,
Yeah, we say that, huh? Yeah. So what about, okay, so I like the trauma bond that happens, or I guess the explanation of the trauma bond that happens between Sukyeon and Gi-yoon, the two girls.
I don't remember their names. Okay, the two girls.
So the two girls demonstrate an example of trauma bonding, which I liked, because in the past we've talked about trauma bonding in romantic relationships, but we didn't really get into, no, you can trauma bond with a stranger at a rehab center because you guys are going to bond over rehabilitation, and that's a very strong bond, right? And the bond can either go negatively or positively, but a bond is a bond, right? Like it's a strong emotional attraction, or I don't know what type of attraction, but it's an attraction that bonds you. And I started to see this once I started to understand trauma bonding, that it can happen among friends, where the friendship almost feels, and they'll tell you, it feels like there's no way out of this. And who says those things? People who are doing drugs. Like, I know that this is killing me. I know that this is not the life that I want, but I can't let it go. I mean, that's how strong that trauma bond is. That's why I said it's another manifestation of childhood trauma. Something happened where, you know, we bond when we will bond over abuse, we'll bond over trauma itself, we'll bond over anything. And so they bonded over feeling, they're both women, and then they both feel kind of like about life, one more than the other. Did you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, no, I really like their relationship too. I like how they opened up to one another, and I like how they told each other, or one of them told her her real name, you know, at the end. Oh, it's at the end of the, yeah. Oh, you've seen it though?
Yeah, Jess, we said spoiler alert, you're gonna have, okay. So so I wanted to say some stuff that I caught psychologically speaking. The shorter one that gets triggered by the religious stuff. So it shows that she has had an unhealthy attachment in life. Like she has complex PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because her dad would like hurt her mom and then abuse her sexually and then pray about it. And so she gets very triggered by prayer and by like all of these things. And people who have complex PTSD, meaning that they've gone through trauma over, it's not like one person saw a genocide or one person saw their friend die. Those are very traumatic experiences, but complex PTSD, it's going to lead to a very different, more intense personality type, where she feels emptiness. You can see it where she gives herself, like she sacrifices herself and is like, I don't have nothing to live for. Whatever. Where the other girl, they seem similar in that way, but she still has a brother outside. We saw kind of like that human aspect where this person with complex PTSD, it's harder for them to form relationships. They're so disconnected because they never learned that healthy attachment with life, with the people around her. And so she's empty. She feels like nothing matters. It's like a different level, because she's not sad about it. She's just like, whatever. So
yeah, I like that episode. That's why I said the marble episode is the one that broke me, because a lot of their true colors came out. Like even with the Indian guy and the guy who's supposed to be like, he went to a fancy school, but he's in also like a lot of debt. And I really don't understand his debt, or like, you know, I just know that he let his mom down, you know, like he went to like a prestigious school. The main character with the old, excuse me.
Just throw up a little. Sorry, just throw up a little.
The old man with the main character, and then these two. And they're the ones that they've made these relationships with. And at this end, they made them go against each other, you know? And that one was just the hardest, because it's like you saw their true characteristics, you know? And we knew what this game was going to be played out to be. And I don't know if I would ever have it in me, but we've said that so many times. We're all capable of this. And we did see them pulling triggers, you know, or playing the game very shade, like very to their advantage, you know. But them too was like, they didn't play the game, you know. She already knew, and she's like, well, let's just get to know each other in these 10 minutes, because it was more like not fulfilling, more entertaining for her, you know. And that was it. And the other girl was like, I can't believe like this is our 10 minutes, how we're gonna spend them, you know. And she was thinking about her brother. So I thought that was also really interesting, like their relationship in that moment.
Whose relationship?
The two females.
Oh, yeah.
In that game.
Yeah.
Because she knew she wasn't going to play. Like you said, she had lost the hope already within her. So she was just like, let's just get to talk and get to know each other, you know? Like kind of her, like, this is the way I'm going to go, you know? I might as well try to do something I've never done before.
Yeah, that's intense. And it's intense what high stress situations will bring out of you as well, right? Like we change, like we go into our shadow side because we've never explored it, so we don't know a healthy way to express it, and we express it in this way because we didn't practice. See, that's what we got to practice, our shadow side.
Yeah.
We got to get to know ourselves more. So the other type of like an attachment example with the girl with the Sik Yoon, who is the girl with the brother.
Mm-hmm.
So she is from North Korea, and North Korea is like harsh, right? We all know that. But one thing that I saw is that North Korea acts as the military, or I don't know how it's formed, acts as the parents. Like they don't let parents, right? Like everything is so controlled that she has a very unhealthy attachment with the world, because she never, I mean, she's from North Korea. She trusts no one. She says that. And so that's an example of an unhealthy attachment. Is this girl grew up feeling like no sense of control. And can you imagine being born into this type of society where you are not allowed to be you in a very controlled way?
Yeah, in a very individualistic way.
It's, yeah, I don't know that. So that one's pretty interesting, but yeah, so she just developed like, both of these people have issues, all of these people have issues with forming strong, healthy relationships. And as they get older, like we see it all around us, right? And it's hard to watch, but it's also very like scientific. Like it's very like, well, yeah, I can see that. Like I can see why this person has unhealthy relationships with their kids now that they're adults, or this person really hates their mom, they always have. And a lot of these issues, the reason that they're issues is because people do not tap into them. They've never made peace with it. And it sounds so easy to say, make peace with your trauma. It is not easy. It's a lifelong journey. But can you imagine being 50, 60, 70, and you're still in that trauma mindset and you've never been able to get out of it? That to me is like, you're stuck in a cage for the rest of, you're a prisoner of your own everything, you know, because you don't go into your trauma until you just suffer until you die. So it's kind of like morbid but true.
Yeah, it is.
And I think this show does a good example of showing the reality. Like, but let's talk about poverty mindset.
I like that. I didn't know till the end of the game that they had that division of like poverty versus class. And we see it when the masters, or what do they call them, right?
The VIPs?
Yeah, the VIPs. And I'm like, who are they? Who are they? And yeah, they're so unknown, you know, it's a small group of men who contribute to that. They bet on their numbers, like what they do. Yeah, like the horses.
Yeah.
And what they do. And it's just that addiction they have to fulfill. But I've always loved studies when it comes to money, because I think it brings out a different side of people. Mm-hmm. And I remember this one study, and I looked it up, and it forever like stayed with me. It was the study done in Princeton University, where they said the max number was 75,000. So if people made that number, no more made them happier. But if you were like, let's just say, I think it was 40,000 or less, then yeah, you had problems because you had other stressors. You know, you didn't have the means to live comfortably and not worry about money. But if you made around the range of 70,000, that was like content, where people were, that they did studies on like different people, and they would always show like the closer you made to that number, the better, the happier you were, like quote unquote. And I always thought that was trippy, because we always say like, if we had $1 million, or if we had $1 bazillion, I would be happy. And then I like how that show depicts it at the end. It's like, no. And even the old man says that, you know, like on his dying bed, he's like, well, I just did this because I had nothing else to do with my time. Like he was essentially miserable as the people in poverty who keep, it's like, you know, the grass is always greener on the other side. And I hate that concept, because so many people live by those standards.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
we all do.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one, because essentially that message is saying, look at how miserable the poor people are, but then look at how miserable the people with infinite amount of money. It causes almost the same
effect.
Neurosis, because you're reaching something. Look at all this money, and now they're so bored that they're playing with human lives like horses because they're so bored. To them, that's where it comes from. They're empty. The people with no money are empty, and the people with all the money are empty. So money cannot buy happiness.
Exactly.
And capitalism, we've talked about this a lot. We're taught that. We're conditioned to always chase the dream or whatever, right? Like whatever we're chasing. I do it too. Maybe I don't participate so much, or I try not to. I think about money so much. Like, man, I should be making more, but I stress over it. It's not just make more, attract it, put yourself in that position. Sometimes I'll get negative and I'm like, I don't have enough. And it's neurotic. You're always going to think you don't have enough, because even when you do reach the level where, look at these people where it's like they have so much more, they're bored. It's still not enough. Therefore, we need to rethink that chase, because exactly like you said, that's that study about the 70,000. I don't know when I made the assumption for me, like 65 to 80. I'm like, I'm good. If I can reach that, I don't need more. And I told myself, don't chase some more either. And people are going to disagree, right? And I'm not saying people who go after money are bad. I'm not judging. I don't care. I'm just saying that's the opposite of the capitalistic dream, is to be comfortable, find peace. There's so much hectic in this world. The only way to make yourself happy is to go within. And we find it so hard to go within because we don't know how to do it. It would be detaching ourselves from everything that we know. It's scary, it's lonely. And so we're more likely to be like, nah, I'm just gonna chase this so that it can appear that I'm chasing, like the hustle mentality. I really bought into the hustle mentality. And I still think it's cool, like if you're a hustler, but my thing is, as a mom, I had to take a step back. But those were my choices, right? Like those are my, well, what do you prioritize in life? You have one child, you're a mom, you really wanted to be a mom, be the best mom you can be. And so it's like a sacrifice, where I'm like, I'm not living, I could be making more, I could be hustling, I could be more aggressive about this, but that's going to take quality time from the things that matter, which is being a parent. Because so that's just an example, right? It doesn't have to be you're a parent, but just the little things in life, we don't know how to value them. Because we're constantly taught, like, no, you're never going to have enough. So keep chasing. And that's why we're in the rat race. Because we're just chasing. We want a nicer car, we want a nicer house, nicer clothing, to be able to go on these trips. And it's like, you can make that happen off of 65,000 or less, like you can do it for less.
Yeah, same. And I remember when I heard that study, so it reminded me this show, when it distinguishes, like, this is about like classes, or like there's one perspective of it. It's like the rich people versus the poor people. It made me think of that study that I had learned. And I was like, it doesn't matter, their money. And that's why he didn't spend his money for a whole year, because now that he has it, look what he had to do to like get it.
He's still empty.
Yeah, he's still empty. And then it took him to like see him at the end to like do something about it, right? Because then that's how we know there's gonna be a season 2 somehow, right? When he dyes his hair that red, which I never understood. But why didn't he spend his money? And even though man's like, you have it, why didn't you? And he's like, this is why I do it, because I gave you $1 million. This is what you were begging for or playing for. You have it, why aren't you spending it? And I was just like, yeah, why? What was it? Why did you decide to play the game?
And there's deeper issues, because if money solved problems, why didn't he touch it? He could have done, this is the antidote. Here's the money, there's all the money, and now you can do whatever. So some theories around that is that the foreman, what is his name? The guy in the front with the silver mask?
The one with the all black?
Yeah.
I don't remember
They're
his name.
saying that there's a theory, conspiracy. So spoiler alert, again, you guys, like, pause it if you don't want to hear more. And it could be wrong. It's a conspiracy around that he did the same thing, and that's where he was chosen. So that he won the game. The guy in all black won the game. And remember, his brother, the cop, went into his apartment, and he was still living very below his means. He has this money. Why would you live in a tiny little, just he lived regular, right? Like, oh, just, he never spent the money, is basically, because they track these people down for the rest of their lives. And so they chose him supposedly to be that guy, that person in power. And so they're thinking that they're going to choose him to be that person in power, but it's going to be like, what do you decide? Are you going to just try to destroy the game or try to make it equal? That's the fantasy they live under. And so, and then the other theory about why he dyes his hair red, supposedly it's like the Matrix, like the blue card and then the red card, or the blue pill and the red pill, and blue means stay asleep, red means get woke. And so he dyed it because he's like, no, I'm not, I don't participate, like, now I'm woke. I don't know. That's just one thing I saw, and I'm like, okay, well, it's a cool explanation, but who knows?
I never understood the red. I was like, I didn't get it. I just thought it was like a Korean culture, like red is sexy. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. Just kidding. I don't know. And that's my mom. Just kidding. So, so the psychology of poverty class, I just want to say, it is the study of how stress and negative states of mind, which if you're on a constant survival state, where it's like, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to get food? How, like, if you're in that area, you don't really, you're in a state of stress. And so you can't cross over to, how can I get myself out of this? I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying most people, that's kind of how they keep them down. For example, we work in this, like, we help with homeless prevention, but we see the truth. We see that we're really not going to impact this. This would have to be a cultural shift, a societal shift, where people don't need to be in the streets, right? But we're just, that's where we are as a society. And so when we have our programs that are like paying for people's rents or helping them get out of a pickle or out of an eviction, the people that are in these situations need way more help than that. You're just literally putting a band-aid until their next time, where they're not able to make it. You're not getting to the core of the problem, which is these people don't know how to sustain jobs, relationships, right? There's a lot of mental health issues, a lot of trauma. And so the same thing is said for these folks, right? Like, when you're in a constant state of stress and negative effects, you're going to make like impulsive decisions, like short-sighted, like you're like, yeah, like, let me try to get my family out of this one. And someone looking in is like, you're crazy. Just take the money that you have and do, you know what I mean? Plan it out, but they're not able to plan it out. And we judge a lot of people that are on the streets or that are living, with less and that are poor, without thinking like, no, it's kind of structured that way. They prey on that system. And the director was saying that he's talking a lot about South Korean government. I didn't know that until I started watching like documentaries on it. So he's hitting at it where it's like, well, it's the same thing in the United States, where like inflation right now, I'm making the same that I used to make maybe like 5 years ago. I switched like areas, and now I cannot afford things. So it doesn't matter, because there's that inflation where things start going up, but your income doesn't. And so that's again pushing like that poverty mindset. Like, now you can be worried and be like, oh shit, what am I? People are going to go into panic, or they are already, and so that's important to note. Like, I don't think we ever talked about that part. It's also in our culture a lot. Like, it's never enough. It's never enough. And if that's your mentality, you die that way. You never sit down and think of a plan and say, no, it is going to, we're going to make this happen. And you don't need to chase a crazy lifestyle. You have enough. You don't, it doesn't have to be that intense. You don't have to make millions to live happy.
Exactly. I think that's the moral of the story.
Yep. Money cannot buy happiness. We've seen it. We saw it. I just think this movie does that. And so people in poverty are easy targets. And they always are for like street businesses, prostitution. You know, it's women get sucked in, and then that's how they start living. And then they're vulnerable. Women are so vulnerable. And then they get a pimp for protection. And it's just, it sucks you in. You know, the world sucks you in when you're in this mentality. You cannot think outside. And then, but we judge them, right? The people outside are like, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you blah, blah, blah? And it's just like, no, it's way deeper and more complex and complicated than we think.
Good topic, Prima. I do like it.
Yeah, one more thing. So, okay, you know that bad guy, the criminal? What?
Wait, we don't have a solutions, right? For
Yeah, I
Squid
do.
Games.
I
Don't choose the
Don't
blue
play 'em.
card. No, just kidding. Okay.
Well, no, I have some like, okay, but wait, I wanted to talk real quick about sociopaths because we talked about it in our Halloween episode. So we have a low functioning sociopath, which is that criminal guy with the snake.
Ooh, yeah. He was a
So-
crazy character.
Yeah,
He was a
someone
good
was
one.
diagnosing him and saying that he's low functioning. And so that's a perfect target on these games. Just like people that just got out of jail, people who have debt, people with loan sharks. Gambling is gonna come in a lot of different ways, you know, and it just gets you like stuck in a hole. So, and then a high functioning sociopath is that guy with the glasses that was the doctor. No, not the
yeah.
doctor. The one
Who went to the procedure school.
Yes, SMU.
Mm-hmm.
I like how they
Yes.
kept saying that.
I know.
He's like the hero of our
It's
community.
like the USC, right? Of
Yeah,
like,
I'm
okay,
like,
that's what I
cute. But guess what? The director actually did go there. So like the
Mhm.
director uses a lot of his stuff, and his mom did used to work at in a kind of like
the market that
like a
she
little
was at.
market shop, and
Mhm.
he also, there was just like little things that I saw some commentary. But anyway, so he's a high functioning sociopath because so a sociopath usually like they lack empathy, they lack feelings for others, they just kind of don't develop that because of whatever traumatic experiences they went through. And so a high functioning one, it's like he has 50-50, right? Like in some situations he's able to be empathetic and in some he's not. But people say, what about that time that he helped that guy on the bus? So remember, he was like, here, you can use my phone, do you have money to get on the bus? And it's like, what a good person. But one person said that that's also a characteristic of a sociopath, saying that I'm still better than someone else, where he wasn't doing it necessarily out of compassion. He was like, for him, like, cool, I can still help someone. Like, I'm not down deep.
Mhm.
You know, they're not rationalizing correctly. And then the other person who's a sociopath is also the host, the old guy.
Oh yeah.
Because he, again, like they think that they're rationalizing their behavior and they're like, no, it's fair. And it's like, that's definitely not fair because you're putting people that are already at a very low disadvantage in a life and death situation, knowing that they're going to pick the life and they don't care. They're too down deep. And then you have people betting like, who's gonna, it's very like psycho.
Mhm.
And that's what power and money will do to you.
Yeah. These characters, I love them all. I thought they were so well written, and yeah, all of them. I cried a lot in these episodes. I started crying though in episode 4. Mhm.
See, I watched so many spoilers
Mhm.
that once I saw it, it didn't stress me out as much because I'm like, well, he's gonna make it. He's gonna win, mom. Don't worry. She's like, sure. Yes. And my mom didn't care that I was spoiling it for her. So, you know,
Yeah.
we saw it in that.
Same. I don't care when people spoil things. I know some people are like that, but I'm like, I don't care. I just want to know. I'm just so curious.
Yeah, I don't care either. But, you know, that suspense, it takes away that suspense. But okay, so some solutions to gambling is you have to, okay, and not just gambling, any of these personality traits, like who do you most identify with? Do you identify with any of them?
I mean, if I were playing that game, yeah, I would be the girl with the brother, because I wouldn't want relationships. And I do have that like motivation, like at home, you know, which would be my daughter though. But I think I identified most with her, like her just sticking to herself and not being too emotionally invested.
Yeah, me too. I think that one. And so if you listening find any of these characteristics that you identify with, no judgment, or you know someone else, you need to understand the problem. So if someone has a gambling issue, do a lot of research on what that means, what that looks like, why it happens, or substance use, or personality disorders. It's not just about gambling. It can be anything, right? Like if you have these issues or you see them in someone else, the best thing you can do is learn about it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't fix something that you don't understand. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to go to rehab. Like, why? Why are you going to go to rehab? Because I want my kids back. You know, like you got to go deeper, like try to understand, but why are you here in the first place? Why do you want a good relationship with your kids? How can you get better at, you know what I mean? Like you got to really do a lot of homework on how to fix the problem. And then if it's someone outside of you is making peace, still understanding what's going on, because then you don't create too much animosity, right? Like if your parent is addicted to something and you grew up in that household, like the protagonist's daughter, like she's growing up with a dad who has a gambling addiction. They're not reliable. Sorry, I had a cough. And so looking into that type of trauma, what does that cause? How can you better help someone in that situation? To understand so that they don't build hate, right? Because it's easy for you to be like, well, I hate my mom for this. I hate my dad for that. And that's not compassionate. You're not solving anything. You're not helping when you're not being compassionate, when you're being judgmental. And then there's also the gambling helpline. So if you are ready and you have a gambling problem, like with anything, you have to be ready, right? To make that change. And it could help with educating yourself on why you have that issue to begin with. The National Gambling Addiction Helpline is 1-800-522-4700. That's funny that I said that, huh? That's weird. But I'll put it on the description box. What else? Yeah. If you have any type of issues, there's usually like helplines and groups, you know, like Alcoholics Anonymous, but for like single moms, for domestic violence victims, for, you know, there's just a lot of cool groups you can join. And with the easiness of the phone and Facebook, like Facebook has stuff like groups. If you're a parent with a child with ADHD, if you're, you know what I mean? Like all of these things, you can find support groups. So part of the solutions.
Good one. I didn't have any solutions, but just don't play Squid Games.
Well, your solution was, I like that you brought up the point that you don't have to make that much, like making that connection of like, you don't have to be a millionaire to live very happy, fulfilling lives, because really what's important is building healthy relationships, which a lot of us don't know how to do. So why not tap into that? That's going to be more fulfilling than being a billionaire, as we saw. So yeah, let us know what you think. Tell us how we did. If you saw Squid Games and you saw something different, or you know some conspiracies, definitely share them with us, because we're going to do season 2, right? And we should talk about that next season, and just to see what else they come up with.
Yeah. And next week is our season finale. You guys won't see us until next year, after next week.
Tell me what you think about my haircut. Like, did I do crazy? Because right now I feel like a soccer mom with the minivan. I feel like it's giving that.
I like it.
Thank you.
Hey, we're going to buzz cut it when I go out there next month. So
Yeah, Jessica wants to like cut my hair. She's obsessed. She has an
like, let's
addiction problem with at night.
All right. I know.
So if you guys see me with a thing, Jessica did it.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right,
Thanks
bye,
for tuning in.
everybody. Thank you.